Hi, this is Jason Sage. I wanted to talk a little bit about security today. Nothing real major. I just want you to know that, first of all, a lot of things are over touted as, don't ever do that because it's really bad. And then other things are touted as, best of practice and everything should be fine if you do that. And these same people who take all kinds of precautions can still find themselves somehow slighted, somehow their data and their stuff gets commandeered, which happened a lot last year. People basically having their data held hostage, for a fee, and sometimes even after paying the fee or Bitcoin or whatever, they did not get their stuff back, and it's a very stressful position for someone to be in. So my point is just to tell you that, first of all, nothing is safe, okay? Nothing is safe. Let's start with that. Then we have, basically you have things like your router from your cable company that could be commandeered by a hacker. So my point is even though you have your operating system, your Windows or whatever, your Linux kind of nailed, hammered down or locked down tight with some good, controls like, some antivirus things and whatever. I've seen some of the best antivirus tools get completely slaughtered on a concerted attack that actually was designed to take out that particular antivirus software by attacking multiple threads at the same time, which were designed to let the software know that, hey, someone's hacking at this part of our code. We're being attacked. Let's shut down. I've seen software that's designed to be aware of these concerted, multi-tiered, multi-thread, multi-tasked, concerted efforts, and then completely just render a Windows machine like completely owned, as they say, with a letter P to be funny. This can happen from your router. This can happen against your operating system. In fact, your operating system is the biggest hole you have. One of the things I want to talk about is my Jegas application server. It can run in HTTP mode, which means not encrypted, which is supposedly the evil of all. Shame on any web developer who does that. And then there's the secure SSL. It says you're secure. It says you're safe. What it doesn't tell you is that you're really still using caller ID like you were on your telephone and always have been on your telephone. And it's just like the HTTP, except they can't see what was being sent within the packet, which means it's encrypted. So basically, if you call an HTTP server, it's kind of like calling mom on an unsecure phone line to ask her about a recipe for like making cookies or something. If someone was to see what was going on, they would see your phone number, the phone number of your mom, and they would be able to pick up the conversation as about making cookies. And that's my point. If I go to an HTTP web server, there's one other gotcha. If I go to a different web server, they can tell where I came from, and that doesn't matter if it's HTTP or not. My point is that there's certain information that's just not a big deal. All right, if you hit a website that sells cookies and it doesn't require that you log in and give a password over the wire, and even if it does it use any kind of encryption of its own? But basically, my point is that if you don't want to log in across the wire because you don't want to give passwords out across the wire, that makes sense. If you don't want people knowing who you are with your IP address, I'm sorry, but SSL does not really help you there because every single packet has a destination. The best thing for trying to hide what you're doing is something called diversion. And diversion I've been doing for decades. Okay, the kids that are learning it now and think they're slick, it's not slick. It's old school stuff, man. Basically, you call one place and you make that place call another place. So when they try to trace you, it doesn't come right back to you. Well, this is what you can do, what people do on the dark web. That's what Tor does. It basically keeps making it anonymous and even random the points that you seem to be coming from. All right? But if you actually know both sides going into the Tor network and both sides coming out of the Tor network that the person's hitting, and you can do this when you have resources like the FBI, for example, you can actually trace the person down to where they are by old school, meaning they were secure while they were in the network, but there was enough bits of data coming out of that network that were able to, basically aggregate the data, basically like a detective. You're able to work out where that person is coming from. So you're not even always safe on these networks, and that's my point too. Like they had the Apple thing, right, where they, the FBI wanted to break into someone's phone, and Apple wouldn't do it out of our respect for privacy, okay? Well, what did the FBI do? They hired some hackers, and they did it any darn way, didn't they? Right, so let's just stop on this whole thing that there's privacy, because there isn't privacy, because even when you have privacy, they'll come in and commandeer your privacy, and if you don't like it, they'll put you in jail. So any of delusion that you think you're in a free country, you have no idea. You are not. And it's not even democratic. And frankly, democratic isn't even the way to go, because then you have 51% who voted for whatever, and then you have 49% that are complete slaves to whatever the 51% said. So let's keep that into account. So my point is, on my software, I run it both on HTTP, and I even had to make my software smart because it has a built-in anti-hacking thing. So it catches people. And I catch that on HTTP, and I also catch stuff on secure SSL. But in both modes of operation, I totally run. Why? Because people are shaming HTTP when on an intranet it's completely legal. It's not only legal, it's completely safe. You don't need to have encryption from John's house to Larry's house if they're working on a private network for their business. You don't always need to have SSL. So therefore, I have my system run with it and without it. You can do it both ways. You can do it where it's HTTP on a secure network, or even if it's an unsecured network, but you're just having chocolate chip cookies, that doesn't mean you're exposing the user to all kinds of hell and bedlam. That's what people try to say. Like, oh, if you went to this site, there's a website I saw shaming websites that still have HTTP. Now, personally, I would only shame them if they insisted that you do a login that wasn't secure, or did financial transactions that weren't secure. Someone will say, well, I want more security than that. They shouldn't have my stuff not encrypted over the wire on the internet. Okay, I'm sorry that your chocolate chip cookies are such high tech that we need to use more bandwidth, more computation, more scrambling, and then at the other end of the wire, de-scramble all of it on a constant stream, which does end up with being more data. It's not terrible, but it's bad. It adds more data, and adds more processing for sure, because you're constantly encoding and decoding. People are like, well, that's it's worth it. It is worth it. My point is that but my point is, don't shame. It's like having a different religion than someone else. You don't just say like, well, I don't like to use HTTP websites because I don't want my IP address getting out there. Well, it does get out there anyway, so that's just a bunch of crap. I don't want anything I'm doing on the internet getting out. All right, you're visiting a porn site or doing some financial stuff on your taxes. You're trying to do what you're doing. I get it. Get privacy. I 100% agree. I also agree in a lot of different passwords. I also agree in changing your passwords a lot. And I also think half the time, if they want to get you, it's not your password they even get you with. All right, from looking over your shoulder, using means that are both simple as looking over your shoulder, as well as means that you don't know you're being looked over your shoulder. And I'm not even going to get into them because they exist. And there's lots of ways. My point is that nothing is secure. Making steps to be secure is wise. If you don't want to use HTTP websites, meaning non-encrypted websites, that makes total sense to me. It's fine. But to slander them as not doing their job or somehow being a bane to humanity for not jumping on the bandwagon. Why? Because Google said it's not safe? Look, Google is useful for many things, okay? But Google also is in the business market. And if you're selling, on the one hand, VeriSign type SSL, there's a whole business there. You can get some free. Yeah, nothing's really free. It's usually advertising run. No one does nothing out of the goodness of their heart. There's a business thing here. And it is better to have if I'm gonna go SSL, I'm gonna go either like GoDaddy, SecureNet, which is the stuff I resell, or I'm gonna go VeriSign or somebody. If I'm gonna do it, you might as well do it with a company that your customers know or heard of before, so they feel secure. But it's to make them feel secure, because basically one of the reasons that it seems that you are less safe with HTTP is that there are thousands of hacking programs that are aware of maybe your specific software that it's designed to hack that, or there's just HTTP stuff that's not SSL. And there's tons of programs that'll hack, and I'm using Backbox right now. It's a Linux distribution with a whole bunch of software just for hacking. But see, most of that stuff, when you make everyone jump over to SSL, now you have 10,000 or so programs that you no longer can use because they don't do SSL out of the box. So now it seems like you're safer. You have some encryption, you got your name stuff scrambled. No one knows that you're getting a recipe on cakes and chocolate chip cookies on this website that I'm talking about here. Okay? But every single thing is an exploit spot. So you now have tens of thousands of software that cannot be used against your new encrypted thing. Now that's a win, by the way. Okay, that's a win. But the lies are that it's because it's so much safer. it's not really that much safer. I mean, it is encrypted and stuff, but I mean, it's not as safe as you might be led to believe. Because basically, when the programmers and the hackers get those 10,000 programs working again on all the software that you have now made, basically they add encryption ability to their software, you're under the same exact attacks again. It doesn't. You might not see that you're talking about a recipe, but your server's damn under attack for sure. And if they compromise that, it ain't gonna matter. If they got you at your house, it ain't gonna matter that you had encryption. And if they get the server, if they're attacking an actual business server, and they get through the encryption by using encryption to hack it, you're right back where you started. Now you have more stuff. Pardon my mouth. You have more stuff, more encryption code. You have all this extra processing going on. And what do you gain? You didn't gain anything. You gained a little time. And I'm not saying it. I'm actually pro SSL because the third party makes it kind of hard to do certain kinds of cheats. But do you know the third party? And that's not even my point. The point is that your traffic still has the IPs addresses that they came from and go to. With IP6, that makes it a little harder and stuff. But when you got computers working for you, you can figure these things out because they're faster than the people. A guy like me takes stuff and automates it, right? Right? That's how come there's like programming used to be. I used to get, easily $55, $65 an hour. Now the programmers are a dime a dozen. Better still, the programmers that are good know how to automate a lot of the tasks they do, which save money. I just saw an article where someone was trying to make it sound like programmers should get that money from the automation that they do for the time they save. My whole job's been saving people money. That's what my whole thing's been. Every time I'm making money, it's usually by a lot of saving money. I mean, it almost boils down like that with computer stuff. Like, we're losing all kinds of money. Oh no, I gotta save some money. Why? What's the problem? Y2K. We have food going bad in the warehouse. Oh, by the thousands, Jason. Oh, really? Shit. Okay. Well, let's fix that. And we did. And there's many things like that can happen. But the point is that just because, like for example, my program, I have security that's on the front door. There's no back doors. There's no back doors at all. There's no secrets in my system that you can't get by looking at the source code. The difference with my system, and it's not that it's the best replacement for all. I'm a one-guy shop. It's not exactly built by a team of 20, 30 developers with all kinds of It's one guy. I've been loving my code for a long time. But the main point is that with my software or another one, it's kind of like I wrote something like Joomla or something, but it does more. It's like it does business stuff. It does like what Google does with a calendar, and not every feature as good, but it does a whole bunch of that stuff. But the whole thing is the security that I have to worry about is the front door. That's where the website is. That's where all the hackers would come in normally. That's the front door. Now I say normally because my point is that my software, I don't try to additionally tie down the operating system, additionally tie down the database system, additionally tie down. It's not that I don't do these things. It's just that that's not what my software is focused on. So if someone feels superior because they hacked my software, I guarantee it's because they went around my software. And that can happen to you, and that's kind of my point. I want you to realize that you can go around the software. I can have some awesome software running on Windows, get a Wi-Fi attack, which then slams my Microsoft Windows, and it doesn't matter what my software does, it can get trashed. And my point is that there are certain things that even when you are using SSL, it's not as safe as it's quite touted. It's like using encryption for a phone call, but it doesn't change the caller ID. The phone still goes from point A to point B, maybe a few slots along the way. But the point is that a website that doesn't do HTTP doesn't do the secured stuff, is not junk, and people should not be shamed for it. If the website does not do back and forth information, it has to do with something private, like a password or something like that. If you have back and forth transactions on a bakery site, and your transaction is you prefer to use flour over wheat flour, use white flour over wheat flour. If you don't want, if that's private to you and you don't want the world to know, then definitely go to a baking channel that has SSL, because we don't want anyone to know that you're on a baking site with your IP address. That could be dangerous. Anyone can get your IP addresses and any addresses. So there has to be a few things. They have to have your IP address, and they have to not like you or want something from you. I mean, that's basically how it works. So my point is about security is that it's all bad. You can be attacked from all directions. If you like SSL because you feel it's safer, that's fine. But to point at the other ones that are not SSL and say that those are all like, unsecured, not safe, it depends what you're doing. It really does. And someone needs to say that. Because the system that's lean and mean with the HTTP sometimes is better for the intranet. And if on your company you're worried about your own workers scanning each other's packets, then you need some freaking new employees. They have way too much time on their hands. Give them a real job, anything. Have them translate a spreadsheet from German to French. I don't care. Make them do something busier than scanning packets on the internet web when there's work to be done. So, just take it all into account. And remember, all angles are areas of attack. If you look at it from a military standpoint and you have a house, you got your front yard, your backyard, the left side of the yard, the right side of the yard, north, south, east, west. You have, your doors, your closet, your chains, what's chained up, what's not locked. You have the motion detectors, smoke detectors. All these things can add up, and good practices can totally help you be more secure. But my point is that if a hacker really wants you, all you have to do is get the right hacker or hackers angry at you, and it doesn't matter what you have. And if you don't believe that, well, then I can lead a horse to water. But that is the truth. Is that good practices help you? Nothing saves you. Because if they really want you, they'll get you. And if you're a Joe Schmo from Idaho, even if you got a lot of money, they probably for the most part aren't even aware of you, don't know about you, don't care about you. You're just another blip. When you start running a company that's multi-million dollars, now you start seeing the different level of hacker and types of attacks and concerted attacks. And concerted means there's more than one person gang stalking on the computer digitally. I know I've turned down work for that, doing red teaming for our government, for government contracts. That's literally where I would go in and hack companies, while also guys would, on a physical level, would go on site, trash the place, steal from the place, videotape all of it. And the whole reason is we bring it back to the people the next day, the CAO and CFO, and we show them everything we did to their company and how come their security was no good and what they can do to get stronger for terrorism. So that's one of the things we did. It was a combination of a digital attack and physical attacks. And we're talking ex-military people running around with guns on a private property, and they get paid to do it. So, and if you don't believe it, I don't care. That's exactly how the military tests itself, like they did in Groton when I was young. They had something like the Red Team. They came in, I don't know if it was SEALs or who it was, but they took over the entire sub base. There was only like 5 guys, and they took over the whole base. And they did it, only one person got hurt. But the reason they do that, you might not like it or not, or think it's mean, but the reason they do that is to see if they're really guarding the place. They actually got written up really bad on that one because it was so easy to take over the sub base that they got in trouble. That was years ago. I'm sure it's better now. When you have nuclear plants, nuclear subs, it's good to test these sort of things. And the best way to test it is to put on a bunch of black makeup, dress up like ninjas, and go in there and take out the guys at the guard door and take over the thing and take over the subs, take over the dock. And there's only a few guards down there with machine guns. They don't know how to shoot. Half of them are just like Navy shills. They don't know how to shoot no gun. I know my stepbrother used to carry one. He didn't know how to swim either. He was in the Navy. So, watch yourself. Take it easy. I'm Jason Sage. What? That's all you need to know. From Jegas. Have a good day.